thank you for letting us support you. I want to support other single moms. Like that was always my thing, right? That was a single mom. And now I have my like twin flame soulmate partner that I get to do this with. So now it's not just supporting single moms, it's supporting families.
Yeah.
It's supporting families that stay together. And that's it. I was wearing my Keeping Families Together shirt yesterday because I just want to keep families together. If they want to stay together, I want them to stay together too. And let's raise our babies in a conscious way.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way we know how. The way we were meant to. You know, when the buffaloes roamed free. That's just how I want to be.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Whoa, babe. Whoa. Watch out. Almost got a chainsaw. Shit. I've never used a chainsaw before.
But you're gonna learn.
I'm gonna learn. It's one of those electric ones you plug in.
Nice.
Too.
Oh, beautiful.
That scares me. Don't.
It's too close.
Between you and me, right where you are right in this moment, is exactly where you were meant to be.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Joygasmic Life Podcast. I am your hostess, Elena Harder, and I am so glad to have you here today. If you are an awakening woman, a conscious mother, a woman on a journey to bring about the best for your family and create an enlightened experience of being a child and a woman and a mother and partner in your world, I absolutely I'm so grateful and so glad that you have found your way here. This podcast collects not only my own personal stories, things I would have done better had I known better, but also the beautiful stories of many hundreds of other women and men who have been through the consciousness awakening journey, who are here to share their stories, to inspire you to know that you can recover from mental health challenges, from postpartum depression, from challenges with traumatic births, and just the life in 21st century, as well as beautiful, actionable tips, exercises where we walk you through practical things that have really helped us, and the journey of becoming a joygasmic mother, one who handles absolutely every challenge with grace and ease and understands that everything is here to awaken her deeper, to create more empowerment and more pleasure in her life, even the challenging things. So that sounds juicy. Listen up, because we have got a wonderful episode for you today.
Fully harnessing the joygasmic potential of your body and yourself. Anything is possible, and especially we are here to tell you that deep and fulfilling love is possible and is available for you when you choose that for yourself. Hello, beautiful people. This is Elena. This is the last podcast in season 3 and a beautiful interview with my good friend Ashley Mack and her partner Simon, who share about their wild birth story. It's a wild, I won't give too much away, but there's a wild car drive, there's giant candles, and beautiful service of women to other women in the birthing process that are shared in this story. And then we have the wonderful opportunity of hearing Simon share about their journey of meeting, how they met, some of their courtship, her journey from being a single mom to now being in beautiful, loving relationship and creating a second child, and some of the incredible nature of the sacred spaces of Alberta and the magic of the healing powers of mushrooms, wild-crafted mushrooms. So we cover all of those things. It's a beautiful podcast, and we have a really lovely rapport. Ashley and I met at, I think, the Conscious Goddess Festival many, many moons ago and danced through festivals together in many different ways. We have children who are from our first sort of relationship and our journey as single mom who are around the same age. And so it's really beautiful to connect with her again in this podcast and to catch up and hear the story of what it is for her to be in brand new momhood again. So I hope you enjoy. There's some beautiful gems in this podcast, and I'll be doing a couple of solo podcasts over the next couple of months, just sharing about the journey of pregnancy and what that's been like for me and my preparation for my own wild birth. And then at some point after I exit the baby bubble honeymoon experience, I'll get back into doing interviews and whatnot. So yeah, thank you so much for being a part of the journey so far, and I really hope you enjoy this interview.
Aw, beautiful. So welcome to the Joygasmic Life podcast. Today we've got Ashley and her partner Simon to talk about their free birth of this little beautiful nug who's hanging out here. And your baby's name again? Oriah. Beautiful. So maybe before we get into the birth story, you can just tell me, like, how did you guys come to the place where free birth seemed like what you wanted to do? How did that happen?
I wanted to do it different this time, different than Tatum. I had went to the hospital. It was beautiful. It was great. I had no complications and it was good. But I knew that there was some kind of, let's say, golden nugget in free birthing, and I wanted to do it a different way. I just wanted to try something different, something that kind of scared me, something that I kind of admired in other women when they would say, you know, I did it without painkillers. And there was one lady that even said her birth can be quite enjoyable, like when she was in labor and contractions. She kind of enjoyed it, like it was orgasmic. And I was like, the fuck do you mean? Like, what are you actually talking about? But she was the one in the 1,000, you know, and that was truthful. That was her story, and I believed it. And I just wanted to see, like, if you could make birth this thing that you hear is really painful and hard, and what if it was easy? And what if it was fun? But what if you enjoyed it? So I'm just going to say right now, after I birthed Oriah, I was like, that was easy. That was the first thing I said after I birthed her.
Like literally the first words out of her mouth after I caught Oriah, put her on her belly in the bathtub. Like it was a smirk on her face, like that was easy. Well, I mean, but a mind blown, like eyes wide open, like, did that just actually happen so easily too? So it was really lucky. But I mean,
I just couldn't believe I said that. Like, I've seen myself outside of myself say that, and I was like, I was almost like, you can't say that, like in the room, like everyone's going to be like,
it's almost a mockery of how much work and obviously mind blowing it is to, and difficult it can be to give birth. Like it was the opposite end. Besides, like it being orgasmic, it was the opposite end of what you typically hear about and expect from birth. So it's like it's one thing to be super enthusiastic about it, but there's like, how do you guarantee like what that effect's going to be like? But obviously, like having an open mind and a broader perspective on it is really important. So it surprised me for my first birth that I'm super duper grateful that it was that easy, obviously, even though it was also insane. Like, let me get a story later.
And then I just want to say that my mantra from Mushaboom, YYC, I think that's her on Instagram. I forget her first name right now. Lovely, lovely lady that you probably already know. She had a card and it said, I embrace all birthing sensations. I embrace the sensation of labor, or I embrace the sensation of birth. And that was my mantra. And Simon actually brought home this little card from the light seller that had that. And I set it up. And I told myself that while I was pregnant, and I'd look at it. And so I pumped myself up to just enjoy and embrace these sensations. So when we were flying 180 on the highway from Edmonton to Calgary, when I was in labor, I was just telling myself that the contractions were coming and they were just as powerful as all the contractions are, and it hurt, but I embraced it and I just like took it in and breathed that in. And him driving so fast and me kind of shaking around in the car was such a beautiful humming. I had, pardon me, my birthing playlist that was being played. It was mostly Mose, Mose, pretty much all his beautiful music he put together for me to birth this baby. And the music helped me. I was cued by the music on different things.
But Araya came a week early.
Yeah.
So there was this last moment to go take care of some things in Edmonton before having to, hunker down on this end of the highway to be close to Calgary and to where the free birth center was. So
Arbor Free Birth Center, yeah.
And so that's what involved the intense mission back to Calgary in order to get to the center, so that everything that was planned could go into action, compared to either our own free birth at the condo in Edmonton, which would have been pretty insane.
And I mean, that's it. I thought I was going to give birth to her in the car. I literally did. And I was like, no, I paid for the doula. I picked my midwife. We're going to set up the beeswax candles. He's going to diamond willow the place and sage the place. I have my birthing playlist. I have my birthing playlist.
Yeah, that's another. It's quite an irony to sort of have a birth plan.
Yeah.
So what actually? I mean, whether it's coincidence or correlation, her water broke basically at the exact moment. I think it was 4:20 on March 13th in the morning, which was the exact moment that the 2 minutes of new moon. So the moon cycle is literally by the minute, in the sense of, if you want to really, it's changing all the time, and there's a specific couple minutes that it is the specific full new moon, and that happened to be at 4:20
when it came into Pisces.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It was just that it was
the opposite, I guess.
I don't remember where it was necessarily, but it was exactly the moment of full new moon.
Right.
And her water broke, and she's like, why? What's?
It's like,
you guys were in Edmonton?
In his bed, and I was like, this is pee. What is this? It's like, I can't be going into labor right now. We're in Edmonton.
It's a week early.
This is
4:20 in the morning.
No. And so I was denying it. I just kept laying there. He's like, do you think you're in labor? I was like, I can't be. So no. And then I'm like, you better get the car ready.
So by about, let's say, 6 o'clock, it was like, this isn't a drill. Yeah. And so there was a specific way to get the car ready. She has kind of she normally has a bit of a bed
Elena
setup.
knows my festival car, CX-7 with the bed in the back.
So that was, for the most part, set up, and then I extra set that up, and it was by 7 o'clock or so, at least, or 6:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
We're booking it to Calgary, and I don't know, I think I had a white shirt ready to try to wave out the window in case we were trying to get chased by cops or whatever, or something, because I was.
And that's called the Wolf Trail?
Yeah, the Wolf Track Trail is one of the old names of what the highway between, well, the whole track, it sort of ends in Edmonton on some level. I mean, it does continue further north, but it's the original tracking trail for the sake of
where the coyotes went, or where the food went, or where the wolves went.
Well, when the glaciers receded, basically the animals came up here, started making trails, and then the humans started following trails. So the entire migration of the civilization of North America, this was a high point of that trail. So anyway, it's just, that's interestingly meaningful about it. It's also the road that I traveled up and down since I was a little kid with my dad, because he had businesses between Calgary and Edmonton, so I was back and forth there my whole life. And anyway, so I'm booking it down the road that I know better than any other. And, trying to get, as Ashley's about to have a baby in the back seat, which was that's always another interesting experience for usually, I guess, for the dad is the like getting to the place where you're supposed to have your baby, like when it's like I suppose there's another big difference between like whether or not you're going to plan to have your free birth at home and have that space set up versus having to go to a center. And I would say if you're going to do a home kind of thing like that, or a free birth, if you can, trying to do it at home might be that definitely would eliminate a strain stress of like you're going to do something sort of out of the ordinary, might as well make it as in the ordinary as possible too, of your own dimension.
Yeah.
And otherwise, if you're going to do a hospital one, then obviously just have a hospital near you. That makes sense. Don't try to throw a freaking 3-hour drive in between any moment. I mean, she came in a week early, so it was, you could say it was pushing it, but it was also, I mean, I didn't think I thought we had at least a week's grace or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, babies often come at their own time as they want to. I think I was in Banff the week before Alex was born with like a stranger I'd met who was like, "Oh, you're cute. Like, let's go on an adventure together," like, so I get it. Like,
not what your little guy's name was.
Yeah, Alex. Nice hat, Ash. Beautiful.
Got my spirit animal on it.
Nice.
So we're booking it. We're booking. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just so you guys are driving. You've got a 3-hour drive in front of you. Ashley, you in the back, like in the back on a bed, or?
Yeah, and I'm on my festival bed, just like a foamy, and I'm like, get this big chunk of like your mucus plug is coming out, and I was like, I threw it on the window. I was like, look, this is, oh my God, like I'm gonna have her in the car, like it's coming, this is coming, and I just threw it. I was like,
smeared it on the window.
It's still there. I haven't wiped it off. I like it. It's symbolic. No, it's just like a light. You wouldn't even know. It's like when I put blood on my face and it's makeup. Nobody knows except for the friends I told.
Yeah.
I guess, right? And I'm contacting the midwife saying,
it's actually calling people.
The rocket's about to launch here or whatever. So trying to get everybody to their stations, and also the doula. And it happened to be that the doula was out of town the previous night. And so she's a very integral part of the whole storyline. The midwives are amazing, but the doula was a really interesting twist we can get into later. But just to keep the road going of like heading to Edmonton, she had lost her phone like about 8 hours earlier.
Oh my goodness!
Went back to find it off the highway. She remembered coming down the highway and taking this one turn and hearing this katunk, and then like somewhere near Canmore, basically. So then, in the night, and went home, and then realized she didn't have her phone. Remembered that sound, went back to the highway, found her phone, came back to the city, and had just realized, oh, okay, it's time to freaking get to your station. So that was like.
And she's the only person I needed to birth my baby. She's the one I picked. She wasn't even going to do any more births. I put this weird post out. She called and I was like, you're the one, Trika. Like, and then she's the Amanita shaman, the owl. She's like, the Amanita's here, spirit animal. The owl's mine. She's our doula. That is that for both of us. It was trippy. Came back on to birth, help me birth my baby. And once she got there, like, okay, so I guess, we're in the car, we're going there.
Everybody's getting lined up. We
finally get there. Maddie's like, I need you to walk with integrity. I walked, my pants are down my ankles, walked in there. I'm at the toilet. She goes, oh no, we're not having this baby in the toilet.
toilet baby.
We're not having a toilet baby. My midwife, Maddie, said. And I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, amazingly somehow
I'll get in the jacuzzi.
Ashley got up. Like, I was like, hey, we parked here. That's great. But how are you going to get from the car into bed now that you're basically like, anyway, she
waddled with integrity. She said, no, walk with integrity. I was like, okay. They cued me so well when I needed to be cued. Okay, hop into the tub. That was great. Simon was setting up the wax candles, the beeswax candles, these huge candles, which seemed like ridiculous in the moment. I felt like the doulas and midwives were like, why is he like, Simon? It's like, no, we have to do this.
She had her vision of what kind of setting she wanted, so we got it the closest to that color. You said the color scheme of the bathroom wasn't quite right. There wasn't enough fabrics in the could have had a fabric for the window or something, but you gotta have, if you're gonna go somewhere with it, you gotta have like your plans, like prop bag ready too.
Had to have
right?
this, guys.
So like that's another word of advice in the sense of you never know when it's gonna happen.
I wouldn't have been able to birth the baby without this candle being lit.
Yeah, and it's like totally psychological, but it's also like the psychological safety and the ritual and the container. You're like, these are part of my psychological container that lets me be in the space that I want to be, even though I'm not in like my space. Like, it's absolutely important. So like, good on you, Simon, for like following through with that and putting it together for her.
It's the craziest trip. And on any trip, your place and setting is it's so integral to it. Right? Yeah. So I mean, I think that was, and that's can be an unfortunate thing about hospitals. Let's just say, is that setting isn't conducive to. I don't necessarily want to go there. Everybody already knows that. I remember
being like, I wonder if they'd let me light a candle, like when I had Tatum, and it was like, well, no, and I was like, but I need a candle. It's just so funny that it's just about a candle. So
this time she had her candles.
Yeah.
Including this one.
And then you saged first. You saged just a little bit, not too much, right? Because like sensitive's not just enough. Yeah. And then, you sat down beside me. Me and Maddie were like trying to get the water of the temperature right because I was being really weird about it. I was like, too cold, more, less. Okay. And then you sat down, you put your hand on my perineum because we were all about, not ripping that perineum. Perineum. And he put the palm of his hand down there. And I was just kind of holding up here and then just breathing, going with it in and out. And then Trika came. And then Trika came to had my eyes closed, but I felt her and she was there. And I was like, okay, it's time. I can do this. But I, in my head, just didn't feel like she was my person and she was my person. And she cued me. And then in the song, there was something that said in the song, like, this baby chose you. Like, it shows you, are you ready? And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I was being quite loud. And then somehow randomly my mom got in there. And I knew that. I knew she was going to be there, even though that wasn't planned.
What's exactly brand?
It wasn't. She had to bring the bag and the papers that we left at Strathmore because we weren't even there.
Yeah, we hadn't left Strathmore, so there were some things in Strathmore that we got. So coordinating between Ashley's mom, the doula, and the midwives to all converge as we get to Calgary. It lined up. She got in the bathtub well. Setting was set up as well as possible on a time crunch. So if you have a plan, make sure you have your bag packed for it at any given moment.
We had it packed. It just wasn't in the car. The car seat, luckily, we frickin' put that in there for some odd reason, right? When we went up to...
Maybe your mom brought the car.
The car seat? No, it was in there. I remember I was like...
Yeah, I guess you had the car set up.
You got to put the car seat in the car.
Right, because you don't want to deal with it afterwards. You want to deal with it beforehand when you're still more lucid and slept.
Yeah, because they won't let you.
Oh, you guys just got muted somehow. I'm not sure. There you
go. It's not there, but anyway, her mom So Ashley's very vocal when she wants to express her emotional state in a vulgar in a heart
I'm a lion.
Yeah,
I'm a Leo.
In a wild kind of way or whatever. So she's letting go. There's these rars and stuff like that, and I'm also like trying to embody that primal kind of essence of calling on your core strength, I guess. And and her mom got a little bit like anxious about that, like in the sense of
so I don't know. Yeah, if you know, birthing can bring up trauma. It can bring up the thing. So this was the thing that was like, I had such a beautiful story. Everything was beautiful, but I still think about this one thing.
But I guess it just I don't exactly remember how it happened, but her mom was a bit worried about thinking that Ashley should try to not be as primally expressive, let's say, because it's
not so loud
or whatever. So
she said I should save my energy. So it's funny when I was like, ah! I thought in my head, like, is this okay? And I think I got a wind of my mom's essence. She talked to the midwife. She goes, oh, I don't know if she should be so loud. And the midwife said, no, you get out of the room. And she walked up to me and she goes, you are safe. This is normal. And then she walked back. And that was Tamara. She was like midwife for 20 years, kind of supporting Maddie. Well, she was just like, maybe it was her 10th birth, and she was there to mum my mom.
Yeah.
And her old mummingness.
She refereed pretty good for the sake of
but I felt that. I felt my mom feel uncomfortable. And then I thought, should I not fucking roar? Or is this okay? And it's like, yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah. And how many times have you probably been through that cycle with your mom in your life, right? Ashley, do you have to be so loud? Ashley, why you gotta be so wild, right? Like I've never even met your mom, and I can just
balls in the backyard that you put your period blood on. So yeah.
She just and it's like, you don't know me by now.
Well, and she's just working through like her own programming. I mean, how many times did she get shushed, in her childhood by her parents, by her mom, right? Like another generation.
In the hospital, they were told to be quiet. I know that. A bunch of people's moms is shh. The doctors would like, okay.
That's enough. Yeah. Yeah, because we got to be primal. It's like whatever primal looks like. And, they say we birth the way we live our lives. And if we're living our lives loud and proud and primal and full of, period blood all over the yard and like happy and joyful, I mean, like that makes two of us, right? And I'm sure there's like thousands of other ladies who can listen to this will be like, oh yeah, that's me too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, they do.
We're wild women.
Like giving birth is the original primal thing. Like it's the the primal universe was the birth. Like it's all like I would say a very, I think part of actually being able to say that was easy was being able to tap into that. And if a woman is encouraged to repress that or doesn't feel safe enough to express that, I think that must probably be a key ingredient in being able to go have a plan and feel like you can stick to it and kind of have an open mind to all of this. And it's these are two different births, right? There's go to the hospital under the controlled conditions or do it your own way. And I mean, luckily Ashley had already given birth and had a lot of experience with that and really knew that she could have the confidence in doing it this way. So I mean, there's going to be a difference between if it's your first time or not, but there's lots of successes with the first time, and also there's definitely complications. So the lucky thing about this place was that it was sort of the best of both worlds because it was it was right near the hospital as well. So if there are any complications, the birthing center was equipped and very easily accessible to mitigating any complications.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, just super lucky how it all unfolded. And then Ashley's moaning and groaning, and I'm growling, trying to cheer her on or whatever, and get primal with it, and trying not to cry, and twitching out like a cat's tail, like being like, what's gonna happen? Like, how do you deal with this? Like, okay, just holding the space here, and then watching this baby's head start to come out, and trying to focus on, you know, making sure that the perineum thing is done as well as possible, and it really, it was, I would say, like 5 good pushes, like 5 good contractions that took maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, kind of like as a total, but like, and then.
But the growling helped.
Yeah, and Maya popped out.
And that's it.
Caught her and put her up on Ashley's belly, and Ashley's eyeballs are hugely wide. We have it all on video, and just like on some level, it's like, you know, good to have a video if something goes well, to like be able to prove that just happened. That like, you know, you wouldn't kind of believe that she said that was easy, like, unless you had it on video. Yeah, so
that was just an instinctual like thing, or spirit, or something came through me to say that.
Yeah. And I mean, once you're through it, it is easy, right? Like everything up to that point is like its own thing. But if you've been able to stay in your hormones, and you're, you know, the endorphins are running all the way through, and you've got this, like, it's like running a marathon. You're like, oh, you get to the end of the marathon, you're like, that was a piece of cake, because you're done. Right?
Exactly.
It's like everything up to that point may have been, you know, challenging, but it's like, it sounds like you had this mantra of like, you're surrendering and opening and embracing all the sensations. And I think a lot of the trouble that women get into in birth is that thing you mentioned with the mom, where it's like, I shouldn't be what I'm being right now. You know, I'm prim and proper, or I'm quiet, or I'm whatever. And all of a sudden this like primal birthing force is coming through you, and it's often feels like too much to handle, or it's really intense or whatever. And if you're trying to hold that back and only let some portion of it out, well, you're in some way like not moving with the full of it. You're not embracing what's happening. If you fully embrace what's happening, I'm hurtling down a highway at 180 kilometers an hour in labor with like my mucus plug against the window, right? Like, you're just like, you got to embrace it, be in it, be in what you want to be doing, right? And so then by that point, it's like, well, yeah, it is easy because it's done. And your hormones have switched from like all the endorphins to like all of the oxytocin and all of the love and all of the like the beautiful like the DMTs releasing and stuff like that as well, right? So you're like happy in that.
I want to talk about my growling a little bit more.
Sure.
It's also Mariah's favorite word. Basically, she's just constantly.
Oh yeah, she growls now, and we're like, oh yeah, that's because that's how you came into the world, and that was your first.
Like literally, she'll go up to you and go. She's all about. She makes little other chirpy noises and toots and, you know, sings and stuff like that. But ultimately, like
growling Pisces.
Growling is her way of communication. Her favorite so far.
I love it. It's my favorite, and it's everybody's favorite. You can see it in my dad. Dawn comes, they're like, oh, like, right? You want to support that in her right away. You want to be like, yeah, that's how we communicate now. Actually, I was using English words, but it's actually. So yeah, it was probably 5 big growls, like growls, like coming into my. And that's what I thought. So I've had the contraction, I'd tighten up, I'd try and embrace it. And then I was able to go under the water and put my head under there. They said after they did not like that. And that Tamara wouldn't recommend Maddie letting maybe her next client do that. But that was, I just went under my water because that's where my happy place is. I go back to the ocean in Thailand and I go under there and I'm weightless. And so I could just like totally like have a break, surrender, come back up. Okay, we're growling. And then when I got a cue from the song, I was like, okay, we're doing this. I'm going to birth her. We're going to have her. And it was my loudest, like deepest growl. And it's when Simon went in unison with me and he growled and we both did, but popped her out. It was when like the masculine and feminine like united or something. There was something to like when you matched me and I was like, whoa, he's like right there. Then like it was like Dad's ready to catch her. Like, pop her out. Dad's got her.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a intense thing to try to sympathize. I mean, that's sympathize with. That's definitely where like I mean, there's a bunch of different ways, but that's when you're really faced with like here's in your face the difference between masculine and feminine ultimately, and there's no point getting into all of that juxtapositioning. But when you're a male catching a baby out of a female and trying to support that and harmonize that with that in as many tuned in ways as possible. Like I was thinking about how you're talking about all the different biochemistry and neurochemistry that's going on, and about Vipassana is all about really paying attention to your internal world like that and being able to subjectively see it within yourself. So it's looking back at it and being in it and thinking about how many different things not to take for granted that are really important. I think really support the experience of it that aren't necessarily as promoted in conventional settings. Like one of the things that was happening was I was like, well, isn't there some kind of like documentary or like something that kind of talks about this that guys can get a little bit more familiar with in order to kind of get into the role a bit better?
He kept asking for this, like trying to, doula, and it's like there wasn't anything.
Yeah,
really.
just where's the guidebook on free birth or something, right? On some level, or at least
she'll probably make it. Oh my goodness!
Right, like there's a lot of books, especially psychology books that have a lot of examples and stories from people, and like you're compiling that. But that's I would say I would have been very keen, not necessarily a huge book, but a good read on the key points of like how to approach this in the sense of creating that set and setting, and the idea of like harmonizing with the biochemistry and neurochemistry and the meditation around that, so to speak, and then also like the not taking for granted like the potential week or so early kind of a lot of things that it's like I guess you're left to come up with on your own. And I feel like it's such a common thing that happens that I wish there was a little bit more of a guidebook for it, I suppose.
For dads, like specifically for dads,
for new parents in general, but especially dads that are research-based dads, I guess, in the sense of like trying to prepare themselves for things. Some people are like that, and I'm definitely I didn't find that book out there, let's just say.
And I think you wanted to support my free birth. You wanted to support the free birth. Dads for free birthing.
Well,
is a thing. There's no group for that.
Yeah, our lifestyle, so to speak, is slightly alternative, let's just say. And one of the ways that we met was about ancient archaeoastronomy. So it's called a medicine wheel, like to go back to the sort of we're in Alberta and we're into the historical essence of the elders that and the consciousnesses and the generations like way back that came before us here, and honoring that. And so it's what's called a medicine wheel, but it's really technically a sun temple. It's Canada's hidden Stonehenge. It's actually
older than the Stonehenge.
It's a little bit older than Stonehenge. It's on the same latitude actually as Stonehenge, like within like a few fractions of a degree. And so over 5,000 years old. Archaeoastronomy, so like a solar calendrical device called the Sun, Moon, and Morning Star Temple. And so Ashley had heard about that for quite a while because she's from around here. And it was interesting when we were first dating, so to speak, out in the back roads of the prairies. I hadn't been to this place. I knew a lot about it, and I'm picking up research on it after the guy that researched it for 30 years, because he also lives in Edmonton.
And that's 45 minutes from my little Dukapur house that you came out to. And I had always wanted to go out there, but I was wondering who I would go out there with.
And she was able to cover her eyes and turn in a circle with her arm pointed out and stop with her arm pointed out just by feeling to point towards it. So it was an interesting like practice of her intuition.
Yeah.
And stopped like directly pointing at it. So I was like, there was a lot of, mystical fun that got our relationship going, because it was
I'd like to speak off of that. Yeah. And just say that's kind of what this is about, is Oriya chose us. She wanted to come through. I'm just trying to create a clear channel for who and what she wants to be. This is not really about us. It's about her wanting to be here. I did not think I was going to have another child. I don't think you did either.
I was pretty on it. I didn't talk about it so much, but like I didn't think I was going to have a first child, let's say.
Yeah, okay.
we also
It's just funny. Yeah, I didn't really see it coming, but we were open to the option, okay? I guess.
Well, you said there was prophecy.
Oh yeah, and then I did have a prophecy to fulfill. But as much as she told me that I was going to meet someone in 2020 and was going to have a son with them, I still didn't believe her. But then when I found him, I was like, oh, he's going to fulfill the prophecy.
We played off that a bit in our like romanticism, and there's a lot of romantics to have about it. Adventure out to the Sun Temple and really start working with that and working with the land out here in a spiritual way. And then, so because Ashley had gone to the psychic 5 years earlier, and the psychic told her about how she would have a boy or conceive a boy in 2020 and
have a son.
So we played on that, kind of being like, well, if I'm going to have a kid, I'm 40 now, for the sake of my parents and for my sake, it's sort of now or never feeling a bit, for the sake of, age timing out relatively okay. Like she's 20 and they're 80 and I'm 60, and that's old enough. Like if it gets any older than that, it seems a little awkward. So I was like, hey, I hadn't really foreseen myself having a kid, but in the light of 2020 and the amount of strange stuff you could talk about, the amount of podcasts and stories we could get into of like why we, maybe considered a bit alternative and living a bit of a dream following whims like that, but they feel very meaningful and significant. So we thought we might be having a boy, aiming for the boy based on that story. And
that's where we came up with the name.
We both love the constellation Orion, so it was very easy to sort of like be looking to the stars for names.
And that's like our deepest meaning or connection, or this ethereal knowing. I always look at Orion and be like, "What? Tell me." And then he had his own deep thing about it, and so it was going to be Orion, and then found out it was a girl, and thought Oriya.
Obviously just like makes sense, and then found out that the name Oriya means, and not pronounced necessarily like that, but
light of God.
Yeah, her name is spelled Oryah, which in Hebrew is Oriya, I think is how you say it, and that means the light of God. So that was all fitting.
And then in Russian it means,
if you Google it in Russian, it says that it means peace, but I've asked Russian people, and we don't know exactly what dialect.
I don't have a confirmation on that, but yeah, definitely light of God, and that's like intense. So it's like I try to just hold her in this, like this is the light of God. She's got some kind of mission. All these kids that are being born now, I think, are star seeds from Pleiades. Even like there's a lot with the Pleiades.
And who knows how our birth really like affects our personality and consciousness and something about the way our life unfolds, let's just say. So,
and going back further into the Lemurian like resonance for me and him, just that's my own little thing. But yeah, I think you kind of get the Pleiadian. Don't you have a group? Pleiadian?
Not personally specifically around the Pleiadians, but like that's where I encountered sort of starseed mythology, and that's where I received a bunch of training through a friend. Like, so that's sort of the ritual star magic that I utilize the most actively, I would say.
There's something to it. Yeah, there's something to it there.
Go ahead, Simon.
Into astrology, basically. So astrology was a big part of it. Astronomy devices that are, so it's our own personal Stonehenge, essentially, was line of it. Like,
I think that's the first thing I asked you. I was like, so do you like the moon or the stars? Like, do you really?
Right. And I said, I think I said more than you could know.
Imagine.
You can imagine. my background in I mean, I have a whole thesis that of how I really believe that astrology is actually a measurable science, and it affects our consciousness because.
Do you listen to the moon and the stars much or something?
Right. So in a nutshell, like, consciousness can be defined technically as an electromagnetic field, because that, like, your body is generating an electromagnetic field when it's conscious, and you know, your neurochemistry and your electrochemistry is firing, and the only difference between you being alive and dead in your body is whether or not that system is fired up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's all there. Like, you can have all the chemistry and all the parts are there, but you know, unless that engine is running, and you know, it's not so much even about the fuel burning. It's literally about, like, something about what's in that electricity that your consciousness is, and that's not necessarily even within the context of your physical body. It emanates, that electromagnetic field, especially your heart, emanates outside your body. So electromagnetic fields are definitely a part of life and consciousness. And then if you think about besides, like, what's going on the planet and all the EMF that of our technology, what is the actual, like, environment, electromagnetic field environment that we live in? Well, it's the solar system's kaleidoscopic magnetic field lines that are constantly, you know, revolving around every surface. If you think of, like, all these bodies in space, they have these big onions, I mean, affected sure by the solar wind, but big onions of layers of electromagnetic field lines that are all like a kaleidoscopic geometry moving around. And when you're born, you leave your mother's house of her electromagnetic field, and you get your own comes online. So that's why the specific astrology is when you're not necessarily when you're inside your room, but when you leave the house of your mother's astrology, come online with your own. Are on your path in the context of the cycle of where that electromagnetic field's transcendental object, like, one of the interesting.
And that's why it's so cool that she kicked the door open on the new moon, the fucking minute. Like, how is she so smart? She's just a baby inside of me. She's like, now. This is the new moon. And I thought it was something to do with her sign. Like, it all makes sense. I can't
a week before
hardly articulate it.
A week before the spring equinox.
Yeah.
The spring equinox isn't necessarily exactly on the 21st.
Kind of when I wanted to have her, but I didn't want to have an Aries baby.
That makes two of us.
Because we're fire. And so it'd be a triangle of fire. And I just, like, that just seemed like too much fire.
It's already enough house enough.
It was just like, come on, like, I'm wearing the shirt, double trouble.
Yeah.
Double trouble.
What about triple trouble?
Boil and bravo.
And it was so it was slightly like, oh, she wasn't born on the equinox, because that's when she was supposed to be born. That's why she was a week early.
And that's what I expected. And I was like, kind of like,
So the calendrically,
entropy of irony coming into play here over and over again.
That's a whole other
thing. I don't know. Are we getting off track?
Well, no, we're getting into into she was born, how, like, the celestial aspects of what was her birth was correlated to.
Yeah.
And that she was supposed to be born on the 21st, which is the Gregorian equinox, but it's not the actual equinox. The equinox is when the sun sets at exactly 270 degrees, so basically halfway between wherever your solstices are, and the solstice gradient changes depending on your latitude. So that's the significance too. The 51st latitude, this is also the angle on the Great Pyramid, 51 degrees. Is not the middle between 90, right? Because it goes from 0 at the equator to 90. 45 is, but so it's not 51, like if you were trying to think of it geometrically on the planet, it doesn't necessarily work. But there's a reason that all of these archaeoastronomy devices, including Stonehenge, are sort of hovering around the 51st latitude. And it may have to do with like basically the context of the domain of the sun and how it sets between solstice to solstice. So right in the middle of each solstice is the equinox, so equal night, equal day. And that was actually on the 17th, 18th for our latitude. Try to wrap that into a nutshell and just sort of give you a background of like how
I'm going to throw a random thing on top of your random thing. So I think the prophecy that said we're going to have a son, we did. We had like a son from the sun, just a daughter from the sun.
Yeah, which is great. At first it felt like you get funnily attached to whether or not you're gonna have a boy or girl, but then like
it was so weird.
It's such it's like to be a parent and think that you're having a kid feels like it's about you. It's so really about this kid, like ultimately, and it takes a while to like.
Do you know if you're having a boy or a girl?
No, we're in the mystery right up until the moment of birth.
You're gonna do the greatest mystery of your life.
Greatest mystery of my life. Yeah.
I think you're so strange and I admire you because I'm so curious. I couldn't not. The curiosity is too much. But that's the greatest surprise of life that you could give yourself. So that's fun.
Yeah. I was really convinced I was going to have a girl with Alex. And in my brain, I still was pregnant with a girl and gave birth to a boy.
And that's the story. So you're just letting it be what it's going to be. Hey?
Yeah, I really wanted it to be a mystery, and
I want you to have a girl.
I would say 99% of the women in my life are like, you're having a girl, and Alex is very convinced we're having a boy. We called in boy spirit, so we'll see what happens.
Cool. Who cares anyways, right? Like, honestly, it's so funny.
Yeah. I want to hear the end of Simon's Astrology solstice thing.
She was born 3 days before the actual equinox. And I'm just like, I had to explain that 21st thing to be technical about that. So 3 days after the 13th is basically the 16th, 17th.
Yeah.
So it turned out really good because we were able to take her out to the medicine wheel, even though she was 3 days old, for the actual sunset of the actual equinox, and anoint her at the medicine wheel. Yeah. And I had gotten there's a really fancy essential oil shop in Vancouver, and I'd gotten this really fancy frankincense myrrh and this special like fermented honeycomb that was 100 years old from those bees, those hallucinogenic bees where they have these crazy honeycombs that the honey's hallucinogenic, and they have the crazy shell honeycombs that hang from these cliffs in Nepal or something, or the Himalayas. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, but the bees eventually abandoned the hives and they just hang there for 100 years, decades, kind of thing.
Wow.
And they have to climb up there carefully and knock them off, and then they collect the combs and ferment them, and then distill the essential oils out of them, which is like the queen bees, like pheromones and stuff like that. So it's this amazing essential oil. And so I had that as gold. So we had frankincense, myrrh, and gold. And one of my best friends came out there with me, and so we were hoping another friend of mine was going to come out, and then we would have had the three wise men and Ashley and the baby and these essential oils at this very, very ancient sacred site to anoint her on the equinox. And then we randomly met this other guy that just happened to be out there. And most people, if they come out there, they come out there on the Gregorian version of the date, not the specific version of the actual event. And anyway, so he was randomly out there and became a friend of ours. And so we ended up having like the three of us, Ashley and this guy Clint and I, to be like the three wise people and anoint Araya on the fall equinox, basically right after her birth. And then the other interesting celestial event was that comet Neowise came through as she was the beginning of her gestation. So we always kind of figured that part of her, that was one of the original considerations of who's this little boy's name going to be when you call him Zen Neowise is what we thought at first, kind of thing, because Neowise being on that year.
We went on the Comet Neowise.
Yeah, so she's a little Orion hitchhiker from flying in on the Comet Neowise, and that's the fun story we get to make up about her astrology, I guess.
And I just like that ceremony that Simon did for her at the medicine wheel. I never cried. I never cried the whole time while I was in contractions. I didn't cry. She was born. Just didn't feel like it. Or that it just, I wasn't, it's not that I couldn't, but I just, in the car, like I was like, I did that with Tatum when I got into it. I was like, oh, it's in pain. But I was like, just going to embrace the sensations. And the first time I cried was when he dipped the frankincense on her head and she just started saying, protecting her. And I just sobbed. And it felt like a wedding. It felt like the most sacred ceremony I have ever been a part of. And it was. And it was like, I married him. It was like our wedding. And I got like a diamond wedding ring from the medicine wheel and like a weird twist. And there was some kind of marriage. So we went there and kind of like some kind of marriage, like an ethereal DNA, bond. And it was just so beautiful. See you bless our baby. And I'll just never forget that. And that was the little cute, ironic thing, is that we got to bless her on the equinox at the medicine wheel, like how we met.
So maybe when you're making your birth plan, take a look at what the astrology is going to be anywhere around that thing. And
not that you can control it or make any, right?
Well, maybe try to just be open to that is what's controlling what's going on in your body. It's back to the electromagnetic field thing. Well, so our local environment is this giant electromagnetic field influx, and we're these tiny little electromagnetic fields inside that. So who's not to say that all our archetypal background, mythology, and everything that projects all of this personification onto the solar system, and sure, we can see it, but remember, also what's interesting is on the psychedelics, one of the common background themes of psychedelics is crazy geometry, rainbowy lines in the background, especially in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
And that's actually the electromagnetic fields of the planet are how birds and animals migrate.
Well, and I think when we gather for festivals, like we bring out the Northern Lights, or there's always trippy stuff. Like you've seen the rainbows at Astral, like the double rainbow over us after you did your Joygasm thing. The picture. You freaking know. We made that. Freaking made that, Elena.
Yeah.
So we made a that, Simon.
You did.
And she made us. Yeah. You know what always comes up? I just like wrote after I went through my deep spiritual transformation here constantly, is that, I don't own the medicine wheel, but the medicine wheel owns a bit of me. And it's weird. It controls me a bit, in a sense, because I respect it. It's weird because nothing controls me.
You don't even control you.
I don't even know how to control me.
Right.
The medicine wheel's got something. And that's it. It's like, I don't want to talk too much about it. I want to like keep it a secret. And I don't want to like advertise it. I don't want to go out there and do videos and like, look, it's like, it's our church. That if you get it and and I guess you've been invited or you're called to go there, you can come to church too. You can watch the sun. And that's when we watch the sun at night. And sun gazing is a big meditation for us. We watch the sun go down, and that's, we call it church.
All of our first dates were basically, homages to sunsets, and just I've been keeping track of this geometry, so to speak, of where we are at this latitude in this landscape, and the way that the sky and the landscape interact, which is, the original TV, let's just say. The original media is basically like what's going on in your environment, because that's all and so that's one of the connections to the land and to obviously the First Nation relationships here and honoring that and connecting to these things. And maybe, maybe that's a good, I mean, your geometry, your astrology comes online based on like where you are on the planet and where all the other planets are at that moment. And like not taking that for granted, especially just whether it's coincidence or not or whatever, incidents is coinciding, which is what it is that like exactly on the new moon, like to really go with the flow of paying attention to these things as you're trying to go along with it all anyway. That's the path of least resistance, I would say, and like making plans and stuff is like what are the planets actually doing, right? I mean, plan and planets, like little synonymous there, so it's like
it's a good like advice to other women and men and dads and moms.
Yeah, when you're gonna plan it, focus on the planets.
Yeah. I mean, and babies come on full moons. Like yours came on new moon, but like it's really common for labor wards in conventional hospital type things to be 3 times more busy on full moons because just the gravitational forces and the way that the energies are coming through and the the spin.
The waters, like, I mean, what else is there's? We know these things actually pull the tides of the waters, so it's like being in tune with that. I guess I can't advocate enough for that. That would be sort of almost the preface to the free birthing book of like tuning into your free birthing, like the word free might actually mean like
home.
Well, giving into how your body is tuning into being home, being here, being part of like the system that life is, and the birth was always attributed to that. There was never hospitals. There was the only way to give birth was to be going along with that.
Being open to this celestial, ethereal realm that you can't see but you can feel. Like that's more real than the home in this. Like this is as above, so below.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. I love Simon hearing you talk about the geometries and the sort of the vortex, the spinning stuff like that. My partner, like, so I mean, I was like, oh, you guys would just get along so well just talking about geometries. My brain is like boggled. We'll have to introduce you guys at some point.
You're gonna come here and see us, and we'll visit you.
Yeah. But there's this piece around that I've heard around birthing, and that's like getting into the spiral, right? Getting those hips into the spiral, moving the hips in the spiral. And there's at least one woman who I heard describe it. She said, as she was connecting with the soul of her baby, as she's bringing the baby's soul in, there was sort of this like really wide like vortex that was forming, and the closer she got to the birth, the narrower and narrower and narrower the vortex got, until it was just this like thin tube, like we think of our spinal like system tube that just like, and then once it was really narrow like that, like it grew in intensity, sort of like we're condensing it and making it more dense as it happens. And then once she had gotten it really narrow, it was like, oh, okay, now it's coherent enough. Now it's like sort of skinny enough, or I think coherent to really bring the baby's soul all the way into the body. And I think, maybe I said it in a more flowery feminine way, but like you're touching on all of those things as well in terms of the greater cycles, like all the stars and all the planets are all doing that all the time in this like incredible spiral dance around each other. And if we can harmonize our bodies and bring them into harmony with that spiral dance through like doing the lady fluid hip thing.
On some level, they're already in harmony with that. We're just not necessarily paying attention to what that means and how like our bodies are in harmony with it, but it doesn't mean our minds are. I think that's what's going on, is that there's a huge that's why I try to say that it's the original TV, it's the original media, because every other thing has been a distraction from being like our minds being harmonized with that. And then that's an ailment of modern society in many ways, is that their minds and their bodies aren't in harmony so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then astrology is it's like it's still so present. Like everybody acknowledges it, even if they don't necessarily believe in it. But the thing is that it doesn't usually really hardly mean anything to anybody. It's just sort of like, oh, it's the news of what's going on. It's kind of like the God news, you know. Here's what the gods are doing today and why, you know, you should. Originally, it was that essentially. Is it politically auspicious or inauspicious to do?
And then it goes into this sticker that I've just been wondering how we defund the media. And then maybe what you said is like this thinking about astrology, like, you know, Elena's creating the new TV. This is the new TV channel of like what's real. And I don't actually know how to defund the media. The sticker confuses me, but there's maybe something about that in here. And then that makes me happy.
It reminds me of in 2012 climbing to the tops of Mayan temples in the night, and sitting up on top of these Mayan temples and seeing this crazy stars. A little bit of LSD also helped too, but like sitting on top of this ancient couch above the canopy of the forest.
Right.
And literally, it's what's on tonight. Okay, well, there's Orion, and there's Pleiades, and there's Cassiopeia, and Ursa Minor, like all of these constellations that we've personified in all these different ways.
Yeah, the Big Dipper's got something too.
The
Big Dipper's got something going on, I can just tell.
That was the original TV and storyline of interacting with these things. And then there was a lot of reverence and psychedelic use along with that would definitely enhance the visuals of like drawing these lines together and talking about exactly about that tube that you're talking about. That is when everything lines up. It's like it forms of eclipses and magnetic fields. And if you put magnets together, you know that if you put a magnet on a piece of paper, put iron filings around it, you can see the layers of what that, like the actual geometry forms itself. It's there. There's bacteria that grow along magnetic field lines. There's tons of different ways that biology is sensitive and aligned to magnetic fields. Yeah. And then and there's poles to it, extreme poles. Like when you line magnets up, it amplifies it, and they run along that specific super duper line that opens the channel of energy to flow. And that definitely sounds like what it makes sense for babies to be following, and bodies to be following in order to move through that process.
I was just gonna say, okay, I think we're getting distracted with astrology and stuff, but no, it isn't.
Well, when you're talking about an etheric feeling of like expansiveness, closing in onto a single thin tube that runs through your body, is like a toroidal description, right? Like the center of a torus, as you drop into it, gets smaller and smaller and finer, thin tube. Yep. Goes through the core and then comes out again.
Me and Simon had this weird thing where it's like we could feel that, or I could feel that when I was younger. I was like, you have that thing? And it was like, it was a weird,
That's how you ended up at the Joygasm workshop, Ashley. Like it's that connection with the Taurus, it's super strong. And I mean, everybody's body is made up of that. It's just like, how much are we actively engaged with it? How much is our minds like going like, nope, that's not what we're doing. We're doing something different. And
how did you find it? Like, how did you come to this and know about that? Like, what was your, there's something here, or is that a whole other story?
That's like a whole other story, but like deep sorrow and surrender through the sorrow to like, please, there's got to be an answer to this. And it was like, well, here's like what your body feels like tapped in and connected to all of that. Just keep following that thread and keep trying to find that thread until you.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah. It's an ancient technology that we've forgotten.
Absolutely.
As it reawakens, and we find more ways of being conscious and being able to find ways of being relative to it and interact with it. And I found the main path that led me that way was watching the way that the sun interacts with the horizon and really becoming aware of what it meant to be like in movement on this planet.
Beautiful.
And also like really debunk the flat earth thing of being like, so right there is like tons of different evidence of like how the sun disappears below the horizon, changes based on latitudes. Like
I'm a
you can easily
conspiracy
debunk the flat Earth
theorist
theory,
until we get to flat Earth.
You can easily debunk it by putting a camera that's doing a time lapse of the sunset on a straight line of a longitude on every latitude. Have that done simultaneously and show that there's a total huge difference in.
I ate my placenta. Squirrel.
You guys are so beautiful, and you're like masculine, feminine. You must love it and drive each other a little bit crazy sometimes.
We just got our placenta tincture the other day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we made a tincture. My doula is the best human ever. And she made a tincture out of my blood. And the placenta. Oh man, I could talk about the placenta all day. So beautiful. Highly recommend eating it after. Maybe not just like a little steak, but get somebody to put it into pills for you. You can get your husband to cook it up for you.
Not mine.
Not the one husband. There was one husband in the world that did that, but nobody else.
No, you got to get somebody else to do it.
Usually put it in pills and.
So having a doula that took care of that, and she just happened to be an Amanita Muscaraya shaman, which blew my mind. Like when we went to visit her for the first time, it was a whole another big sort of mystical confirmation bias scenario of like, how is this happening? Like Ashley's spirit animal of an owl and my spirit animal of an Amanita Muscaraya mushroom is like when you walk into her place, she's got one of those like, greenware, like porcelain lawn ornaments of an owl with a little Amanita Muscaraya mushroom in front of it, and we walk through the door and there's Amanita Muscaraya mushrooms everywhere, and she's like, why all the mushrooms everywhere you go, and kind of thing. I this is supposed to be on me. We're going to see the doula and it's supposed to be about me having the baby, and there's your spear mushrooms everywhere. I'm like,
well, that's
you're the one to set this up.
Yeah, so I had to surrender to that,
That's how you know you're in the right place.
The baby for sure. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, that's how you know you're in the right place, right? When it just meshes and clicks in like that, for sure. I'd be curious to hear if you guys, people talk about birth as like a psychedelic experience. What did you guys interface with that at all? Was your birth experience, did it have elements of psychedelicness to it?
Well, I mean, psychedelic is very subjective and relative to where you're already at.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, you could say that my life is constantly psychedelic compared to where some people's lives are.
Yeah, I'm constantly out of cocktail.
But the birth, I mean, it was that it definitely, it's trippy. It's like, it's psychedelic, like any really intense experience can be, right? In the sense of like
it's more sacred than psychedelic. It's sacred ceremony.
Yeah, and if hyper focusing
on a natural high, like I didn't need any kind of, it's a natural high.
Yeah, I mean, there's not necessarily visuals, but there's definitely a different neurochemistry going on when you're hyper focusing on it. I mean, I suppose it depends on how engaged you are with it. So when you and being sensitive to, again, like almost like if recommending, like, I mean, for lack of a better word, of a Vipassana practice for the sake of being that much more engaged with where you're at while this thing is happening, because it's such a specific moment that you can anticipate and practice for it, right?
Yeah.
In a sense of like,
I don't know if
mental
I got
preparedness.
to the, I don't know if I got to the like orgasmic part of it, and so that's why I hope this story helps women like just get so much support stable, and then that they get like it's joygasmic. I think yours is going to be joygasmic.
Yeah. Because
you are joygasm. Like, and you know,
right?
You know.
Yeah.
The more you know, you know.
But there is that, like, you don't want to jinx yourself by over premeditating an expectation.
No.
And so being able to be in tune with like where the planets are at, planet around that, and expect the unexpected, and embrace the entropy of irony is what I call it. And
if there is,
just make sure that you know how to just like if you're going to go have a psychedelic experience, you know, you want to set yourself up in a place that you know you're going to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But I would say definitely approach it as though it's a psychedelic experience, and make it a psychedelic experience if you want, like, and try to be sensitive in a way to observing it as though it's a psychedelic experience when you intentionally do that anyway. Like it's definitely
gonna come up, right? Like when you are on mushrooms or whatever, heavy stuff comes up. So this thing with my mom, really, that's all I could stop. I couldn't stop thinking about her saying like, shh, maybe you shouldn't be so loud. And that's all I kept thinking about. I had this beautiful story that I just shared, but all I could think about was the trauma. So someone said, maybe you need to share your birth story and get some healing. So literally this is healing for me.
Yeah.
And I just want to say one other thing is that when I was roaring at this Arbor Birth Center, downstairs there was about 8 women who were all pregnant, and they were all like supporting me, giving like the good Juge vibes, and they heard me growling and yelling, and they knew the exact moment she was birthed. And I think those 8 women, I gave them the gift of, you can be this loud, you can do this. And then now, all you women who are going to be watching this, I just want you to know that you can be anything you want. You can do anything, and things will come up of like, should I do this? And just trust your intuition, because you know best about your body and about your, energy field.
You're gonna have a mushroom baby.
I love it.
Oh my goodness. Never mind this hat.
That's so adorable. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I mean, we've like dabbled around talking around psychedelics and mushrooms, and the Amanita obviously is a passion of yours, Simon.
Yeah, that's what
Ashley said she wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what you're doing next in terms of mushrooms, in terms of business offering, should you desire to do so.
Well, I'd like to tie it into our house.
Yeah.
We're kind of bringing the medicine wheel home. Like everybody's bringing their medicine wheel home. So we've got some rocks set out here. We got a real cute spot in the middle of town here where I was raised, and we're going to raise our 2 girls. And yeah, we want to help people help themselves. So we're going to have a community garden. I don't really know what my clear ask is, other than, we're going to be giving opportunity for people to look at the sun and sun gaze and, see what that brings up in them. And we'd like to share our knowledge about the medicine wheel, gardening, raising kids as a tribe, right? Getting your tribe. Not necessarily living together as a community, and everyone's like, so no, you live at your spot and I'll live at my house with my Simon, my babies. But I want to have a community garden.
Yeah.
Where people can garden with me. And then, yeah, that's it. And then he's obviously creating a mushroom business while raising our girls. So yeah, I'd like you to talk about what your mushroom business needs to do. What you want to do with that mushroom business,
So yeah, obviously, having a kid means, and being a dad means having a way to support your family is always helpful. I come from a long background of work towards self-sufficiency, and not necessarily, it does a lot of interest in food security and self-sufficiency. So gardening and alternative technologies and sort of off-grid kind of stuff, and a lot of community orientation I was involved with in Edmonton, but 2020 fragmented a bunch of that relationship, and then the idea of moving from my hometown down to Strathmore to have a baby, because that made more sense to live in a small town than for where Ashley was at, and her other daughter and her 9-year-old, and for me to be closer to the medicine wheel, because like both of my fields of study that are more Alberta based are amateur paleontology as well as archaeoastronomy, and those are literally in the same field, like exactly 86 kilometers that way as the crow flies is the center of the medicine wheel, and then towards the winter sunrise solstice, and then the fall summer sunrise solstice, 86 kilometers that way is parts of the Badlands where I do a lot of we also do sort of private paleontology tours.
Oh, cool.
And so interested in the story of the land here, essentially. So like the ancient story in the paleontology, the ancient story of human development here, and relationships with the land, and honoring with the cultures from before and the elders before, and their awareness to that. And that also really has tied into mushrooms for me. And when people say mushrooms, it often sounds like they're talking about psychedelics. That's, I've been
reishi, medicinal mushrooms he mostly speaks of.
And I've been into mushrooms my whole life. The Amanita muscaria mushroom has been my spirit animal mushroom since I was a little kid, and is a huge teacher in so many different ways about the way that all kinds of different aspects of nature are interwoven. Like as a kid, I was into Eastern philosophies and meditation and third eye activation, because I was really into like astral travel and dreaming awareness and lucid dreaming and stuff like that. So like, how does the third eye and the anatomy actually tie into that, and the imagination and everything? So I pictured mushrooms as the third eye of the forest, because a lot of them look really eyeball-esque, right? And they have this really appealing to the eye, kind of colorful, funky, cartoony nuance in the forest. Yep. It's otherwise awesome, but sort of subtle sometimes compared to the mushrooms. The mushrooms really try to make themselves like artistically stand out in otherwise camouflagey places. Yeah. And so they reminded me of like imagination of the forest and the third eye of the forest, like coming to look into this dimension. And they literally connect to a neural network that connects everything in the forest. So that was, we could say, my artistic spiritual journey with mushrooms as a little kid, because my grandparents, like my Oma in Germany, took me out mushroom hunting. And so I learned a bit about gourmet mushrooms, fell in love with the Amanita muscaria symbolically as a little kid, and then became the first youngest member of the Alberta Mycological Society back in the late 80s, early 90s when it started up. And one of my main inspirations was a lady named Elena Harder, who wrote the Identification Guide to Mushrooms of Western Canada. And so been an avid amateur mycologist my whole life. I used to want to run away from home when I was a little kid to try to get Paul Stamets to adopt me back in the early 90s. And everybody knows who Paul Stamets is now, but nobody really knew in the early 90s.
Literally. Yeah.
So I've been on an intense mushroom, you could say trail, but it's mostly been bushwhacking. Yeah. So I've been on this intense mushroom bushwhack for my whole life. And then in 2018, I got Lyme disease in Nelson, actually. So, and it wasn't necessarily, I got a very bad infection that is very parallel to the symptoms of Lyme disease. My doctor thought I had an autoimmune disorder, and they were going to give me immunosuppressants. But then I opted for doing a bunch of research on which direction to go. And I really felt it in my body that I had an infection. The doctors didn't want to look at it as an infection. But when it first happened to me, I literally described it as I feel like I have little hamsters chewing holes into my collagen. In my collagen. And your collagen is the tissue that is between your bones. It's like it's away from your circulatory system. And your circulatory system is where your immune system is mainly functioning. And I found out that these bacteria called spirochetes burrow holes into your collagen to avoid, the police of your white blood cells in your circulatory system, and causes a hell of a lot of inflammation in your collagen, and it feels like little freaking hamsters chewing holes into your collagen. So, I felt that sensation on a bacterial level, and started using mushrooms medicinally to boost my immune system after doing quite a lot of research about like what was going on with my immune system, with like the concept of all these symptoms I was going through. This whole huge other story, but my whole life with my relationship with mushrooms wasn't really on the gourmet side or the medicinal side. It was just on sort of a spiritual, artistic connection to nature side. But then it was almost like they told me it was time to do something. So, and if anybody that's familiar with mushrooming, they'll know what I'm talking about. Is that there's a relationship with mushrooms you get where you kind of feel and hear and sense them as a different sort of character of the biosphere that you can have communication with, even though it's all in your own head. Certainly it's hard. There's so many incidences where you just stop by the side of the road because you have the feeling, and you go and look and you find this crazy mushroom. There's a lot, whether it's random or whether or not there's something going on there is a whole other interesting thing to look into. So,
I don't think it's random at all. We got to go out last fall with two brothers who professionally mushroom picked wild mushrooms for like sale, and like they literally the one guy was like, I was like, how do you tell where they are? He's like, I've got this mushroom clicker in my brain. I'm like, what the heck's a mushroom clicker? He's like, thing that says like go left here because here's the mushrooms. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. But then he literally, like, I went also walking through the same chunk of woods that he did, and he came back with like 8 baskets of mushrooms, and I came back with like 2 mushrooms, and I was like, there's something that like he knows something going on here that I don't know. So I was like, it's definitely a thing.
There's a relationship and a dialogue that sounds
Cool.
like another weird way that mushrooms affect your consciousness, let's just say.
Yeah.
And so Robert Rogers wrote this book called The Fungal Pharmacy, and he's been a long inspiration of mine, but more in the medicinal side of things. But again, I wasn't super into the medicinal aspect of mushrooms until I started really using them to modulate my immune system and help this biochemistry war inside myself against this infection.
Yeah.
And he had a new edition of The Fungal Pharmacy out that was on the shelves in the health food store that I was shopping at. So I picked out this new book and started really realizing, okay, well, this information is right here in the sense of this biochemistry of these forests. And I understood that, like Paul Stamets has long said, you know, the old growth forests need to be protected as a matter of national security, international security in case of, I mean, even in, well, I'll get to that part. So in 2018, I'm fighting off Lyme disease. At the end of 2018, I basically beat it, and then in 2019, I have this new sort of respect for medicinal mushrooms in my local environment. And then in spring, so that's about January 2019, and then
Well, it's a hilarious picture.
There we go. Perfect.
Sorry to interrupt you guys.
Then I started making mushroom tinctures, basically, because I started finding I found this one grove of chaga. Chaga is supposed to be kind of rare, but I found like essentially like a little pandemic of chaga in this birch forest.
Wow.
And the chaga started telling me, there's so much, like, start making medicine out of us. We are really antiviral, and really immuno boosting in many different ways, and specifically antiviral is what I got the vibe of. So it said, started making medicine out of us, and I was like, okay, well, normally the mushrooms are my friends. I don't usually kind of harvest them and especially do extracts, but I just started learning from a really good friend about making tinctures because I was helping them do it. And then starting to do the mushroom tinctures, especially with chaga. And then in September 12th, 2019, was when a friend of mine sent me a picture of a big, like what's often called a lion's mane mushroom. It's a little bit different species, but essentially I was like, wow, cool. That where was that? Because that was one of the main ones I was using for nerve health.
Yep.
Because your nerves get attacked too by the Lyme disease, and this thing clicked in that year specifically. It was a very potent mushroom year in the sense of like tons of mushrooms were fruiting, and I just sort of snapped into it like I hadn't done for a while since I was a kid, of just like hyper mushroom mode. I spent 40 days and 40 nights nonstop, like just foraging for mushrooms and processing mushrooms and starting to get this inventory of all these medicinal mushrooms collected. Because they were telling me to do this. 2019, September till November. Wow. And then November, the movie came out, Fantastic Fungi. I had no idea it was coming out.
Yeah.
Showcases Paul Stamets and all the stories about like everything about medicinal mushrooms, and it's playing at the little theater. So I was getting all these Groupon tickets, buying as many tickets as I could, taking all my friends and family to go see the Fantastic Fungi movie that had just come out after the mushrooms started telling me to, make medicine out of them. In the movie, Paul Stamets says the national forest old growth forest should be protected as a matter of national security against potential global pandemics. In November 2019.
Yeah.
So then I'm making all of these hardcore medicinal mushroom extracts for like my friends and family and community is what they were telling me to do, like the mushrooms. And then the beginning of 2020, it all starts to make sense. I've got this line of medicinal mushrooms, especially chaga, around antivirals, and a global pandemic starts to happen.
Sounds like you were in the right place at the right time, listening ahead of time to the wise words that were coming your way. Good for you.
Something like I don't, I'm just, it's all, I started really making me question my own sense of confirmation bias, right? Like, because when too many serendipities happen, it's hard not to be suspicious about it, right? Like how much am I projecting onto like this? But I've had a lot of that going on in my life. So anyway, that led to my interest in see, for me, it's not only about finding mushrooms and foraging them and making medicines out of them. It's majorly about that these are friends of mine that I greatly respect, and I don't want to take them for granted. So if I'm going to make medicine out of them, how do I get every last drop and honor what all the work that they've done creating this biochemistry and not take that for granted? And extracting out of mushrooms is actually quite difficult. To really extract. And especially all these different mushrooms have very different qualities to their, their structure. So being able to extract them became quite a research project, which eventually developed into the business that I created called Wyld Mushroom Alliance. Beautiful. So Wyld Mushroom Alliance will be launching in basically January 2022. And it's a collaboration between.
I wanted to ask her if she knows who the two most mushroomy people are in the world, or at least in Canada. Like, do you know Yarrow Willard?
I've heard of Yarrow, and then Denis is the other human.
Okay, so that's the two people he's working with. So the main, I knew she would know Denis.
Yeah, the main trilogy, so to speak, of the Wyld Mushroom Alliance is Yarrow, Denis, and I.
Yeah. Beautiful.
The mushrooms told me to go talk to
beautiful people.
The mushrooms told me to go talk to them and get them on board and sort of up to speed with the mushrooms plan, so to speak. And now, so part of this house and all that, I literally found this house looking for mushrooms because across the street, across the gully is, across the water moat is this house that we were looking at, and then when we came out of that house, I was like, I'm always looking for little forests, wondering like where the mushrooms would be growing. Out in the prairies, that's sort of far and few between. So there's this little forest in the middle of Strathmore, and I'm also really attached to, like, we're going to raise a kid, it's got to be near as much nature as possible. I grew up in the ravine, and that was my main teacher as a child, and sort of not having that as a opportunity for my kid feels really like a drawback on raising them. So this little forest all of a sudden stood out, and I saw this little roof line hiding in the trees. And then, so I got actually to drive over around into this old folks home thing where she never drove into this little gated community. And we found this weird A-frame Narnia house hidden in the bushes that she'd grown up here her whole life and never seen.
Wow.
So trippy. Like, that is a trip. You talk about a psychedelic experience.
Yeah. Like
you just need to go look behind the veil. Like, there's veils. And then if you're not tapped in, you can't see them.
Yeah.
I couldn't see
like
it.
personal Mandala effect type thing. Like maybe it didn't exist in your childhood, but now it exists and it's always been there.
That's crazy, Elena.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have looked into Mandala effect stuff a lot. But
I have. That's so trippy.
Yeah. So you found this house.
Yeah, so this became the headquarters for the Mushroom Jedi labs. And that's what I call myself, as the Mushroom Jedi. You know, Yarrow's the Herbal Jedi.
Yeah.
And it's the mothership of the Wild Mushroom Alliance. So we're working on basically. It's not only a medicinal facility; it's a research facility and a culture library. In order to, I mean, what's it called? The mission statement of Wild Mushroom Alliance is to help the forest, help people, help the forest. Mm-hmm. And to prove that the biochemistry of established forest ecosystems is invaluable compared to the lumber that the forests are otherwise seen as. So to build a case, to build essentially a legal case for the forest's evaluation of value itself. Mm. And therefore start trying to implore different laws around protecting especially old growth forests. So in the case of Fairy Creek right now, instead of it being, you know, a guerrilla war between lumberjacks, RCMP, and you know, tree huggers, so to speak, there's actually a lot more case to build on how this is an injustice to a sentient ecosystem.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's part of Wild Mushroom Alliance. And then I'm also working on one called Soma Mushrooms Incorporated, which is specifically on Amanita muscaria, because there's a ton of medicinal aspects of Amanita muscaria. And my partner in that is a lady named Amanita Dreamer. So anybody that's interested in Amanita muscaria should definitely look up amanitadreamer.net and find her videos, or look for her on YouTube and follow the path there. And then also I'm working on the research around psilocybin and developing R&D around. There's a lot of companies that want to grow a lot of psilocybin mushrooms to make medicine out of them, but it's sort of similar to the cannabis industry, where like all these places wanted to blow up all this big cannabis industry stuff, but took for granted the actual relationship it means to have with the biochemistry of these organisms and how to really work with that. So the R&D around what it really means to develop this chemistry through the relationship with the organism, through the idea of how you create the environment that best suits that organism and the extraction methods that fully honor the biochemistry therein.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds like you're doing lots of good stuff with all that. I'm super excited to hear that those are like that you're doing that work. It's super important. And, you know, your collaborators sound like really fabulous. And Amanita is a dream mushroom, isn't it? It's one of its aspects.
Yeah, it can help enhance dreams, help enhance sleep. It's one of the only topical painkiller mushrooms. It's a GABA antagonist, so it's a relaxant. It's anti-anxiety. It's known to be poisonous, and there is an aspect of it being sort of poisonous in the sense that the ibotenic acid can be hard on the system. But what it does is it decarboxylates into muscimol, and muscimol is like a natural analog of benzodiazepine. Muscimol, lots of really important biochemistry there, and very within the medicinal, like the antiviral aspects of medicinal mushrooms, like obviously incredibly relevant, because we're in a biochemical war with either, you know, a virus that was accidentally released or was created by nature, natural part of overpopulation regulatory systems, and our own real defense in this war that's super been washed up in the media about vaccinations and masks and everything is your immune system. It's the only actual defense against this. And trying to trust a subscription to an injection of an experimental vaccine is not even, it's not fair to actually say that you're going to get the shot or that it's a vaccine. It's a subscription to consistent vaccinations. Like, so.
I like the word, you know, sovereign that's come up. I think Tim got coined it. Simon created it.
Yeah, right. So the concept
Coined by Simon Mack.
what I call immunosovereignty.
That kind of says it all, hey?
Yeah, no, that was me. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, is my immunity coming from myself and the like terrain? Like I like terrain theory to talk about it. It's like,
Exactly.
the terrain that we live within, the terrain that we cultivate. I've been talking a lot about sugar season. People are like, it's flu season. I'm like, it's sugar season, and sugar is like horrific for the immune system.
That's an immunosuppressant, yeah.
It's so true.
And so that's terrain theory is exactly what this is about, in the sense of helping the forest help people help the forest. The forest is that terrain, and ultimately mushrooms are sterile sacks of water hanging on the side of trees, and their only actual defense is the biochemistry in their cell walls. And because they are genetically similar to the human genome, more so compared to plants, and we usually use plants medicinally, but mushroom molecules are actually more suited to human immunomodulation than plant molecules on some levels. So that's why mushrooms are super useful, because they have specific biochemistry to be defensive from viruses and bacteria and all these things that dovetails nicely into teaching our immune system. On some level, it's the same vein of theory as vaccinations, in the sense of a vaccination is meant to, or an RNA adjustment, all these things are supposed to modulate your immune system to be better equipped in order to deal with your terrain. But what better to actually take the things that have evolved in your terrain to deal with your terrain, and you are eat. So eat strong immune systems from your immediate environment.
Well, and if the vaccinations worked, they would work. Like, you know what I mean? Somebody had a sign of that, and I was like, what? That's so simple. If they worked, it would work. Like, they're not fucking working. Come on.
It's very individual basis thing, right? I mean,
it is.
Everything it's all training. It's not a cure. It's a class for your immune system to take to hopefully do better when it's battling in the real world. One of the ways that
mushroom ninjas.
Well, one of the ways I describe using medicinal mushrooms is like going to ninja class for your immune system, or martial arts for your immune system, because you go to a martial artist teacher, your sensei, to be taught how to be defensive in your environment by a fake opponent, right? Your sensei pretends to be the opponent and battle you in order to build your muscle memory on like how to deal with an actual opponent. And that's the way mushroom molecules can be sort of akin to modulate your immune system. They help you, the beta glucans and long chain polysaccharides help train your immune system to be able to be better equipped to deal with other, actual foreign invaders that are threats rather than teachers.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you guys so much. My brain is like stretched in beautiful dimensions. I feel inspired about birth. We're talking about mushrooms. We got all sorts of good wisdom coming through, and then also getting to see you just in life with baby and navigating that together. It's been super, super beautiful. It looks like Alex, you want to come in, buddy? You want to say hi?
Hey, Alex. Man, I haven't seen this kid for so long. Do you recognize me, Alex?
This is Ashley.
Remember crazy Auntie Ashley?
We were friends when you were like much younger, and then
we have the same hair.
You do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to see ya.
He's almost 11 now. Tatum must be.
Well, he's almost 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Did you guys have anything? I know we were trying to time our talking with baby and napping, and baby's done napping. So I just wanted to check in and see if there was anything else that was really burning you wanted to talk about or share about birth or about mushrooms, or I feel like we could talk forever about it.
I know. I just want to hang out with you, girl.
Yeah, let's make that happen.
Yeah,
we're coming into Calgary for Christmas, New Year's, and I can't spend all that time with my parents.
No, you can't.
Because even though I love them. So
your friends are your family you choose. And that's funny. I like to do a traditional Christmas with my parents, but then I like to do a friends one.
Yeah.
And that's
so
it's just fun.
Yeah. We'll chat and make that happen.
Okay.
It'll be really good. Baby. She's like 8 months old. She's got a mushroom cat. She does, because her dad is super loves mushrooms exceptionally much.
She's Alex. The mushrooms are just everywhere, dude. I don't even know.
Look at this big fishy they've got on their wall behind them. Little mushrooms. I just got this guy. I just got this little guy on my altar. Pop quiz. What is this?
Reishi.
Yeah. Can you turn it over? Show me the other side again. The other side again. It's a nice red belted. So
It is a red belt.
Fomitopsis mousiae. Or if you look at Fomitopsis pinicola, you'll see it, but pinicola is only really in Europe. But that's a nice young red belt.
Oh, she got poop in her butt again. I have to hammer nails.
It's a medicinal.
We gotta hammer nails now.
Why it's in my house.
Hammer nails into the ground.
A friend of mine was teaching me about mushrooms this spring and introduced me to the birch polypore. So then we picked up some of that, and I've been drinking tea of that most days. And then these ones I was like, but they're so beautiful, and we're leaving this like beautiful wet valley. So I'm just gonna like pop a couple off and bring them with. So we got a couple. When I run out of my other polypore, I'll start chopping these up and putting them in.
Those are decent medicinals. I'll be happy to hook you up with this intense line of like what Wild Mushroom Alliance is making is like the world's highest quality medicinal mushroom tinctures. And I want to say the world's highest quality because I've looked and done research and tried everything else, and I've developed a very thorough extraction technique, and I'm offering much more concentrated extract for the sake of it being a lot more therapeutic.
Beautiful.
And so that's where it's headed. Definitely stay tuned for Wild Mushroom Alliance coming out. It's just www.wildmushroomalliance.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super looking forward to connecting with you around that. The mushrooms are so beautiful in all their various forms. I remember encountering reishi for the first time. I think Denise actually at Light Cellar was like, you need to take one of these home with you. I was like, that's a weird looking thing. What the heck is that? You know? And then I started learning about it more and making just basic tea for myself. And yeah. What it was I was pregnant with you, Alex, and one of my girlfriends who has her husband's like Chinese Asian descent, and so his mom was like, "Oh, your friend's pregnant. Like, let me give you goji berries and reishi and tell her to make a tea out of this and drink it every day." And I was like, "This stuff is so bitter and so gnarly. Like, what the heck? I don't know if I want to eat this or drink this." But 10 years later, I'm like, everybody should be drinking this if they're pregnant because it's like so good for you. And
yeah, reishi is one of the safest things. It's so safe that you can give it to babies, take it while you're pregnant. I mean, that's
what Denise told me too. Is the goji berries. That's an important thing for women.
Yeah.
And your source of the mushrooms is important too. Most medicinal mushrooms, because of the historical context, comes from China. Mm-hmm. There's tons of very high quality mushrooms coming from China, and that's one of the things is that the mushroom market is very full of misrepresented medicinal products, let's just say. So it's about understanding how to understand what a real medicinal mushroom product is and tell the difference between that and, let's say, brown rice flour that's myceliated to a small degree and stuff like that.
Right.
That's a big important thing that the Wild Mushroom Alliance is also very advocative of, the education on how to tell a sham, so to speak, from a real mushroom product.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. There's a lady here in town who's growing reishi and a couple of other sort of the non-psychedelic plant mushrooms. Are you interested in me connecting with her?
Oh yeah, and the Wild Mushroom Alliance, the Mushroom Alliance. I mean, sure, it's wild mushrooms, so I connect with many foragers typically, but I'm also working on all kinds of. I'm a consultant for design of like professional mushroom farms.
Okay.
So
cool.
I have a background in architectural technologies, that is now very useful in this much ado about mushrooms everywhere,
Cool.
especially the competition.
They just went with wild because Farrell was taken.
Yeah, we don't necessarily consider
Farrell's got like connotations, whereas wild is like, we get it.
Right. There's less weasels involved, I suppose, but yeah, it's everything about mushrooms is kind of my forte and my interest.
Beautiful. I'm super grateful for chatting with you guys today.
I can't wait to hear what Simon's going to be the last mushroomy. He has so many mushroomy things, and he always signs off on. What are you going to say to her this time?
Yes. Any last words of wisdom for people pursuing journey with mushroom medicine? Or
may the forest be with you.
We'll leave you later. Leave you alone and just have a great day and everything. And super nice chatting with you too. It was so amazing to connect. So thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this and be a part of your work and really advocate the idea of making a guidebook around like free birth, or coming up even with a new name that is more accurate about like the tune-in birth or something.
Yeah.
You know, and so appreciative of the connection, and live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper indeed, sir. Thank you. Beautiful. Ashley, any last words for mamas who are on a consciousness wild birth journey?
I mean, I think the ones who get it. And the ones who know. And I think you're really going to do something here. That's why I wanted to take the time and hold space for this, because I think you're really going to do something, because you just really have something. And I'm happy to leave you with this. You're going to make us the coolest 5-minute thing. You're going to make a book eventually about this. And thank you for letting us support you. I want to support other single moms. Like, that was always my thing, right? That was a single mom. And now I have my like twin flame soulmate partner that I get to do this with. So now it's not just supporting single moms, it's supporting families.
Yeah.
It's supporting families that stay together. And that's it. I was wearing my Keeping Families Together shirt yesterday, because I just want to keep families together. If they want to stay together, I want them to stay together too. And let's raise our babies in a conscious way.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way we know how. The way we were meant to. You know, when the buffaloes roamed free. That's just how I want to be.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. There's so much love to both of you. I'm so glad to have met. You know, you were a little bit ahead of me. You're like a year or so ahead of me in terms of the baby journey and the collaboration with masculine, beautiful, sacred masculine and happiness. And I'm so grateful to
my phone's gonna die. Is that gonna cut the recording, or you'll still have it? Okay.
I'll just hit stop. We're all good.
Yeah, don't lose all this.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end.
How easily can you imagine that this experience is integrated already deeply into every cell of your being in such a way that you will begin to notice that you have already been operating from this new behavior for a while, and that it was simply a matter of noticing how much you've already been doing this. You may choose to feel that this moment is the moment that completely and utterly into your body. Or in the days and weeks ahead, getting curious about how fully and completely this experience has transformed your life, realizing that you are at complete choice to choose how you would like to integrate this information into every cell of your being.
thank you so much for being a part of the Joygasmic Life podcast. And I am so grateful to have you here and be a part of it. If you haven't already, head over to joygasm.me to check out our Joygasmic Birth Blueprint ebook and course, which give you all of the information that you need to become a Joygasmic mama, whether you are postpartum or whether you're expecting your first baby. This course absolutely has tips and tricks for you that will help prepare you for birth, prepare you for the birth of your next child, and prepare you for peaceful and joygasmic mothering on the other side. So absolutely. The way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything. And so by utilizing and beginning to build a practice of joygasmic alchemy, you will absolutely become a better mother and hold space, as I am and as many, many women are, for the enlightenment of the planet. We do that first by working on ourselves and then offering that support and that enlightened nature within ourselves to our families. And then from there, it ripples out. So if you haven't already checked that out, go check that out now. Again, it's joygasm.me. We've also got courses on rescuing your relationship, Bulletproof Mom, how to be able to handle even the most intense toddler or special needs child later on in life, as well as a multitude of new courses that are coming out. We're absolutely grateful to get to have you as a part of that. And remember, anyone who participates in the funding of the podcast absolutely gets a membership access, which allows you to access the bonus features, the ends of some of our episodes, exercises from our guests, as well as featured free content from them. So super glad to have all of you who are a part of that already here. And thank you so much for being a part of the Joygasmic Life family. If I could leave you with only one tip for how to be an orgasmic, joygasmic mama in this world, the invite would be to really step into and embody the knowledge that you are actually here for a reason, and that reason is to be an enlightened being for your family. They chose you for a reason. They chose you on this consciousness journey for a reason. And you absolutely have the tools and skills to be able to do this. If you're struggling, please reach out. I am more than happy to help people rewire what's going on in their brain, create a new story, and create a more powerful experience so you can be the kind of mama for your kids that you really have dreamed of. You absolutely deserve it, and your children absolutely deserve it. I look forward to getting to know you more, and I look forward to co-creating through the membership content. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you on the next podcast.